All right, welcome back, everybody. We're talking about notes multiplying monomials, which we've already done, but this time we're going to be talking about power to a power. So if you look at these first couple questions here, okay, it says x cubed, and then immediately following that x cubed, it has a parentheses with a squared. So we've talked about how to square things, we've talked about how to cube things even. But what happens if you already have x cubed and you square it on top of that? Okay, so let's talk about what does 3 squared mean? When something is squared, that pretty much means that you need to kind of write it twice. Okay, we've talked about that before, and so 3 squared is very similar to 3 times 3. Or it is exactly similar, it's the same thing. And what is 3 times 3? It is 9. So, with 3 squared, it's 3 times 3, it equals to 9. And so we can use that to kind of break down how is x cubed squared going to work, okay? Inside the parentheses is an x cubed, and outside is a squared. That means that the inside stuff needs to get squared. And like we just talked about, 3 squared means write it twice. So x cubed, let's write it twice. And we just did a warm-up in my class, and we reviewed how do you multiply variables with exponents. And what would the answer here be? X power 6. Now, it's very important that you notice the difference between 3, which is a number. When 3 is squared, you're going to get 9. However, once you're working with exponents, you're not going to get 9 anymore. You're going to get 6 now.
We've got to add the excess?
It's right. So, we'll talk about it, okay? Here's the secret to me, okay? So here's another piece of paper. I'm going to kind of write a couple different things down, okay? If you want to make numbers bigger, okay? If you want to make numbers bigger, you pretty much know 3 ways how to do that, okay? So let's start with the numbers. Let's do 15 plus 2, okay? This would be called addition, of course. This is how you add numbers together. And this makes numbers bigger, but it doesn't make them that much bigger, right? So for example, what is 15 plus 2? 17, right? It's only a little bit bigger. Now, a little bit more than that, another way to make numbers bigger would be 15 times 2. That, of course, is called multiplication. And instead of 15 plus 2 being 17, now we have 15 times 2 makes 30, which is a lot bigger, right? And so we're growing and we're growing and we're growing. And the last way we know how to make numbers bigger is to do 15 squared. That still uses a 15 and a 2. This is called exponents. And this is kind of the biggest way to kind of like change your number. If you want to make a huge number, this is how you do it. Okay? So, when you're doing numbers, these always kind of, they get bigger, and 15 plus 2, that makes 17. And 15 times 2, that makes 30. And 15 squared is 225, right? Exponents are very, very big. Now, why are we talking about how to make numbers bigger, Mr. Collier? Obviously, we know how to make numbers bigger. When it comes to letters, if you want to make letters bigger, you always end up kind of downgrading 1. And here's what I mean by that, okay? When we have x cubed times x5, okay, you might be thinking, oh, well, x cubed times x5, that's a multiplication. But when it comes to letters, you kind of drop down 1, right? We know that this should be x power 8, because that's 3 x's and that's 5 x's, and you put them all together and you got 8 x's. So multiplication actually ends up dropping down 1 to be addition. Okay, just like we did today. And so, same with letters, if you have something like x3 to the power of 5, again, that looks like exponents, but when you work with letters, when you work with variables, it kind of drops down a level. And I know this looks like exponents, but it's going to end up working like multiplication, right? This is going to be x power 15. It's not going to be 3 to the 5th power, which would be a very big number, 243 or something like that. Okay? You're just going to multiply these. So whenever you're working with letters, you kind of get downgraded 1 level. So now we're back here, and that kind of makes sense, right? Because this x power 1 or x power 3 squared, that looks like you have exponents, that looks like you need to use exponents, but you just downgrade 1 level and you multiply them. 3 times 2 makes 6. Okay, so let's look at the next one. This ends up being very easy. If you struggled to follow that, you can probably pick up on the pattern really quickly anyways. X squared cubed. It looks like we need to use exponents to combine 2 and 3, but don't use exponents. Go down a level and just multiply these together. X squared is just 2 times 3 instead. And so we should have x power 6. We're just basically using multiplying. Okay? And then when it comes to the y's, we have power 4 cubed, but don't do that exponent stuff. Just level down 1 and use multiplying. What is 4 times 3? 12. And then we're done. That's the question. We're just kind of going down a level, and it shouldn't be too bad. Now, number 3 is really the question that, is actually a question. The first 2 are so easy, it's kind of a joke. Here's the difference with number 3, okay? Let me grab some highlighters real quick. Number 3 has a 3 in front of it, and then it has letters after that. And like we talked about before, numbers and letters, they kind of behave differently. So when we have all of this squared, and that starts us off with a 3 squared, when we have a 3 squared, it's a normal number, right? We're going to keep doing this as a squared. We're not going to multiply these because that's just a 3 squared. The only time we downgrade to multiplying is when we're working with letters. So 3 squared, you just type it in, 3 squared. Okay, we've already done 3 squared on this piece of paper. It's 9. We kind of know it's 9. So 9 is how we're going to start. That's the pink piece. And then when it goes to the green pieces, which are the letters, now we're working with letters. And now instead of using exponents, we need to downgrade and start working with multiplication. So this is 1x squared. What is 1 times 2? 2, of course. And then we have 7y's. And that's just going to be 14. Because when it comes to the letters, it's always downgraded. When we come to the letters, it's always a little bit easier. It's just multiplying. Okay. So the numbers and the letters work differently. With the numbers, you're still going to square it. You're still going to cube it, just like normal. But when it comes to the letters, it's different. It's a little bit easier. It's a little bit downgraded. Okay. Now, here's the 2 questions, 4 and 5. This is where you definitely want to lock it in and pay attention. If you can do these 2 questions, then you pretty much understand everything we need to learn today. Okay, it's only been 10 minutes and we're pretty much done. So for number 4, please go quickly, Krista. Oh, I got you. For number 4, we have a -4, an x5, and a y6, and they all need to be cubed. First of all, the number out front just is going to get cubed like normal. So we're just going to type -4. How do you get to the exponent level on Desmos? So CBRT is a cube root. That's not really what we need. What we need is a shift 6. Okay? Look at your computer. Your shift 6 has that little arrow on it, right? Your computer key looks like this. And that little arrow is literally like, take me up to the exponents, right? So we type -4, we type shift 6, and then we type a 3. And what is -4 cubed? So remember, it's not multiplying. This is normal old numbers using exponents. It's -64. Now we're going to do letters. Now we're going to downgrade. Now we're going to use multiply. And so the x's, just multiply 5 and 3, 15. And the y's, just multiply 6 and 3, 18. So all the way at the top, we always have our kind of total thing. Basically, the numbers and the letters work differently, okay? When it comes to the big coefficient, the normal numbers, you need to raise those to the power. But when it comes to the small exponents, you just need to multiply them. Okay, number 5, same thing. We've got a 9, and then we've got a bunch of letters. The letters are pretty easy because we're just going to use multiplying, and that's not going to take us very long. And the 9 out front also is pretty easy, but they just work differently. It's like 2 different switches in your brain. So when this one is a 9, that's a normal number. That means we need to use 9, shift 6, 2 to get a 9 squared. And what is 9 squared?
81.
81. And then we're going to start working on our letters. And the letters are different. How many A's should we have?
6.
6, because you just do 3 times 2. And how many B's should we have?
8.
Because you just do 4 times 2. And how many C's should we have?
12.
12, because you just do 6 times 2. So the letters are very, very easy. And the numbers, you just need a little bit of Desmos. Just make sure you're not doing everything the same. The numbers or coefficients and the variables work different. Okay, now there's 3 questions left. The bottom 2, I'm not really worried about the bottom 2, but this one is very important. Okay, number 6 is definitely worth your time. Okay, now, in middle school, it's been a long time. You guys are much, bigger now. You have your own problems in high school. But in middle school, they teach you a little bit about exponents. Does anybody remember any rules about typing in exponents in the calculator? It's probably been a long time, right? We definitely still need the shift 6. Here's the problem, though. Okay? This is Desmos's one weakness. I will tell you right now, Desmos is a supercomputer. Desmos is so strong. Desmos is so smart that anybody can pass the Algebra 1 SOL test if they just know how to use Desmos. But listen to me. This is the one thing Desmos gets wrong. Okay? Here's the problem. Desmos sees this different as a computer than we see it as a human. Okay? Desmos sees this, and it sees it like a 1, where 2 things need to happen. It needs to turn negative, and it needs to get squared. And Desmos does them in the wrong order, because Desmos follows PEMDAS. Desmos does the exponents first, and it does the negative last. However, we are humans, and we know that the negative sign is already attached to the 1. that the negative sign needs to be in the parentheses. So look at the board, please, and notice the difference. The top question with no parentheses and the bottom question with parentheses are getting different answers. And that's because Desmos is a little bit too smart for its own good. So, when you use Desmos and you type in especially negative numbers, you have to use parentheses. Otherwise, you're going to get the question wrong sometimes. So, for example, if we look at number 6, it's a -1. Somebody get the door for Krista, please. And that -1 needs to be power 4. Excuse me. If we need to do -1 power 4, thank you. If we type it in wrong, -1 power 4, that is not correct. Parentheses -1, close the parentheses, and then power 4. Now that is what it needs to be. So please be careful. These are pretty easy notes, guys. This is a pretty easy thing to learn. When it comes to negative numbers especially, type it in with parentheses. It should be a +1. And then the letters are so easy. We're very good at that. x4, power 4. Now we're working with letters. Multiply them, 16. Y, there's only one of them, times 4, 4. And Z, there's 2 of them, times 4, 8. Okay, don't pack up just yet. We got 2 minutes. I'm going to do these last 2 questions. Now, these 2 questions are definitely weird. Stay quiet for just another minute, please. Number 7. Okay, it's the same thing. We've got numbers or coefficients and variables, and they work different. When it comes to the 6, we have to do 6 squared, which is 36. And when it comes to the x's, we just need to multiply them. Well, how do you multiply a times 2? You just put 2a, right? Don't overcomplicate it for yourself. You're just supposed to multiply the exponents, so multiply them. A times 2 is 2a. And the last one, this one is very weird, but it's not that tough, okay? -8 cubed. Be careful, we need parentheses if we have especially negative numbers. So I need to do parentheses -8 cubed, which is 512, -512. And then I'm just going to multiply this stuff by 3. The bell's about to ring. 2a times 3 is 6a. -7 times 3 is -21. And then the y, 4b times 3 is 12b. The bell's about to ring. It's a little bit of an abrupt end to the notes. But the bottom line is, when it comes to the numbers out front, use exponents. When it comes to the letters, use multiplying. It's not that tough. Here's the answer to number 6 if I move too fast.